I don't know who needs to hear this, but this is definitely the season of the underdog. This is the season where the person who has been diligent day after day, year after year, decade after decade, that they're going to see the fruits of their labor. If you are new to my channel, my name is Ndidi Amadi. I talk about all things law, life, and lifestyle. Thank you so much for joining me. So what I've been so excited about is seeing people finally stepping into what they have believed they always would have. And people who have been perhaps overlooked, the underdog, people who people haven't been paying attention to are finally experiencing everything it is that they've been praying for. And what has excited me, to be quite honest, has been YouTube. And many of you are probably familiar with this YouTuber. Her name is Dodash. And her growth on YouTube has inspired me because she calls herself an underdog, someone who doesn't have necessarily what it takes to blow up on YouTube, but she's blowing up. And not only is she blowing up, she is taking people along with her, and she's telling people to show up for themselves and to show up authentically. And I'm so excited to see that on YouTube. And some might say, well, that's only YouTube, but I feel like YouTube is a reflection of life right now. I feel like it's that saying, art imitates life, or life is imitating art. Because even in my own life, I feel like it's my time, because there's been certain things in my life where I have been praying for, I can promise you, decades, and that I haven't seen anything, but I'm going to see it, and I'm seeing it now. And that is my hope for you, and that's also what I see happening. People who have been historically the underdog, people who have been historically overlooked, people who have been historically forgotten. I feel like God is just opening up the curtain and giving us a stage, giving us a platform, giving us everything that we have been praying for. And I want to talk about a few things that I think happens when someone steps into their season and someone is elevated and someone is no longer the underdog. And I think the first thing that happens is acceleration. And I like to use the analogy of agriculture because I feel like you can learn so much. So I feel like this is what happens in somebody's life. When you plant a seed, here's the ground, and you plant a seed, and you do so much to get that seed to break through to the surface. You're watering that seed, you're pulling up weeds, you're tilling the soil, you're making sure that that seed has an environment. Nobody knows what's going on. Nobody can see any growth. Nobody thinks that you're even doing anything. And yet that seed is germinating underground. And it seems like almost overnight, one night, all you see is the ground. The next night, you see new life. That seed breaks forth. And it seems like instantaneous. It seems like it happened overnight, but it didn't. And I feel like there's a parallel to our lives, because if you're like me, you have been planting seeds for decades in whatever area that you have been planting. And to the outside naked eye, perhaps it seems like nothing is happening. This individual is not doing anything to move forward. This individual is wasting their time. And suddenly, that seed breaks forth. And that seed has accelerated. And I think that's the first thing that happens when someone is stepping into their season. There's an acceleration. Things happen rapidly. You go from unemployed to employed. You go from single to married. You go from broke to rich. And it seems to the outside naked, untrained eye that it happened overnight, but only you know that you have been putting in the work for decades. But we'll take it that it happens instantaneously. Overnight, someone becomes an overnight success. And I think that's going to be the first sign that it's your season. I remember there's this story. I had struggled for years financially, and I remember one day I had probably $12 in my checking, and 12 in my checking, 13 in my savings, or whatever. It could be flipped. But all I know is that the total was $25 between my checking and savings. 3 days later, I went from $25 to $25,000 3 days later, because I had won a claim. So I have seen it in my life where God will take you from nothing to something within a matter of days. And it feels like overnight, but to win that claim, I actually had to do a lot of things in order to win that claim. But for a long time, nothing was absolutely happening. So I speak from experience when I talk about going from nothing to something, zero to hero, tragedy to triumph, pain to purpose. And I think that's the first sign you'll know when you have stepped into your season and you're no longer the underdog who's overlooked. I think the second thing that happens is when you've done everything that you can. You have done everything. And I'm going to give an example of applying for a job. Say you've been applying for a job for a long time. You sent out all the resumes. Perhaps you even had somebody look over your resume and you paid for it. You've done all the networking. You've done all the cover letters. You've gotten all the interviews. You've done the mock interviews. You've done everything. Your LinkedIn profile is up to date. You've done everything humanly possible to do what it is to get that job. And then you just stand. That's how you know it's going to be your time, because you've done everything that you could have thought. I think of this gospel song by Donnie McClurkin. It's like, after you've done all you can, just stand. And I think that's the time when God steps in, when you have done everything in your humanly strength that you're able to do, when God steps in and he changes that circumstance for you. So I think that's another sign that you are stepping into your season, your time, because you've done everything humanly possible. I also think that you'll know when it's your time based on your posture. I feel like this is the season of people who have kept a pure heart towards others in their winning season, that they are going to win. If you are the person who's always encouraging people, if you are the person who also serves as an inspiration for others, even though your life is not perfect and you have your challenges, if you are the person who's always given to people, I feel like it's now your time to be given to, poured into, encouraged. I feel like God is elevating those individuals with the pure hearts. I just see it. It's like this whole thing is principle. This whole life is principle. There's principles that govern our lives. It's like seed time and harvest, like I spoke about before. If you keep planting seeds, you're going to have a harvest. That's just what it is. And I think about how the universe works. I think about how planets orbit, and there's like a system and strategy, and it continues to orbit, you know? And I think about morning and night. Every morning there's the sun. Every evening there is the moon. So there's systems in place. And I feel like that's how it is when you have continually sowed good seeds. You will eventually have to get a harvest. That is the system. That is the principle. I'm not a scientist, but I think of certain laws. It could be physics, it could be another branch of science. I don't know. But like, every action has a reaction. If you are always giving your time, your money, your energy, that's a reaction. You're definitely going to have a positive reaction come back to you. That's just the law of science. You know what I mean? So I feel like this is the time where people who are continual sowers, people who have been there for others, you're always there at somebody's wedding, you're always there when somebody's pregnant, you're always there to celebrate others, that this is your season, this is your time. And I'm speaking this for myself as someone who has had a pure heart towards others and wanting other people to win. As someone who has prayed for others, the same thing that you want for yourself. This is your time. I'm saying this right now. You can come back, and when you see it, you can come back and leave a comment on this video. I'm telling you right now, today is October 28th, 2024. Mark it. This is your time for those who have always gone forth and encouraged others. So I'm so excited for this time, for this season, for you and for me. And I think I want the words for this video to be, I want you to have hope. I want you to have faith. I want you to continue to do the good works. And I want you to stay positive and expectant, because there's just something in the atmosphere. There's just something in the atmosphere where it's like those who were once elevated, tables are turning. The tables are turning. That's the best way to say the tables are turning. And not to get too preachy, I think about the scripture in the Bible where it's like the last shall be first. You know, so if you're feeling like, man, I'm always in last place, man, I'm always the one who doesn't get the promotion, I'm always the one who's single, I'm always the one who doesn't have money, or I'm always the one who can't travel, I'm always the one who's broke, I don't think that's going to be your story much longer. Times are changing. So I will leave you with that, and until next time, ciao.